Hi guys, welcome back to Mysteries channel. Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and checking out the video. I really appreciate it. Sorry about the strange cutoff on the last video, but I wanted to cram a lot of information into one video and then realized it was too much. So for a refresher on the last video, we're kind of connecting lightning gods from around the world that I think may be an ancient representation of a Zeus-like god, right? Same god everywhere, just different names everywhere. Some common things that these gods shared, of course, were lightning, war, rituals occurring in a 9-year interval, human sacrifice, having oracles with the dedicated purpose of military aid, defeating a serpent, caves and mountaintops, oak trees, a hammer or mace-like weapon, also having bulls associated with them, and oddly, cannibalism, seen to show up in the most ancient rituals and traditions tied to lightning gods. The next god we're going to connect is going to be Thor. Thor is the Norse god of thunder and lightning, and he is associated with strength, storms, and fertility. He is the son of Odin and Jord. Thor is the archetype of loyal and honorable warrior. He is the ideal toward which the average human warrior aspired, and although Odin was really the all-father, Thor was looked at as he was also the leader of the gods, and most people really looked to him for guidance and inspiration. Thor was considered the life force, and Zeus was considered the cause of life. Makes you also want to connect them to your heart in a certain way, because your heart also produces electricity and is also the cause of life. Thor's weapon of choice was Mjolnir. Some equate his hammer with thunder, others with lightning. And like other religions mentioned, this religion too records an ancient war between the gods and the giants. In Norse mythology, the giants are called the Jotun. But Jotun does not actually translate as giant. It translates as devourer. The devourers in nature, maybe. Cataclysms or natural disasters, perhaps. Maybe old age, disease, sickness, starvation. Devourers of the body would connect to the cannibalistic and fertility qualities that are found in most of these ancient tales as well. Now, just like the gods we mentioned yesterday, this god, Thor, also fights a snake. The snake's name is Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent. During Ragnarok, Thor kills Jormungandr, then staggers back 9 steps before falling dead himself, poisoned by the venom that the serpent spewed over him. There's that number 9 again. I just wish I could figure out what the heck it actually represents. Another crazy connection is that every 9 years, people all over Sweden would assemble at the Temple of Uppsala. There was feasting for 9 days and sacrifices of both men and animals, according to Adam of Brennan. Adam details sacrificial practices held at the temple. He describes that 9 males of every living species or creature are offered up for sacrifice, and the tradition dictates that their blood placates the gods. The corpses of the 9 males are hung within the grove beside the temple. Adam says that the grove is considered extremely sacred. So much so that every singular tree is considered to be divine. He also said that there were dogs and horses and men all rotting in those trees, hanging all around the temple. Adam reveals that one Christian informed him that he had seen 72 cadavers of differing species hanging in that grove. He also expressed disgust with the songs that they sang during the sacrificial rites, quipping that the songs are so many and so disgusting that it's best to pass over them in silence. All right, next we're going to go over to Dagda. Dagda is a god in Irish mythology, and he is also, he's interesting. All the other gods I mentioned, back to Zeus, on down, have an important quality that I don't really touch on. One of the more ancient of these qualities that kind of gets passed over as society becomes more militaristic. All of these gods, every single one of them that I've mentioned so far, are also not just war. That's what they're more known for later, but in the beginning they're really crop and fertility, like agriculture gods. Now, it's a very interesting transition, agriculture to war. I have a theory, a wacky theory, you know me. We'll go over that later. Dagda is no different. He is also a fertility and agriculture god. He is often described as having a large beard. He is almost like a giant. He is so big. He wears a hooded cloak. He owns a magic staff, club, or mace, which brings life with one end and death with the other. It is said that his mace, when he hammers it down, can kill 9 men in one blow. 9. Keep showing up. What the hell does it mean? He is said to dwell in Newgrange. He is also known as the Great God or Father God. Also, there's a poem about Dagda. It doesn't say that he has a serpent that is his nemesis, but instead an octopus. And with the mace of his wrath, he used the following words to kill it. Turn thy hollow head, turn thy ravening body, turn thy reserved forehead, avant, be gone. There's the magic words, folks. Can't make this shit up. All right, now we're going to go over to the Slavic regions and we're going to talk about the god named Perun. He's the highest god of the pantheon and the god of sky, thunder, mountains, wind, iris, eagle, firmament. There's also a weird association with the translation, kind of like sky stone. It's interesting, but I don't know. He's also connected with horses and the axe of Perun and war. Perun is the most attested of all the Slavic gods, and in an archaic form of astronomy from that region, the pole star was called Perun's eye, and countless Slavic and Hungarian astronomers continue this tradition. Perun was the ruler of the living world, sky, earth, and often symbolized by an eagle sitting atop the tallest branch of a sacred tree, from which he kept watch of the entire world. Deep down in the roots of this tree lies his opponent, symbolized by a serpent or dragon, who was Veles, a watery god of the underworld who continually provoked Perun by creeping up from the wet underworld to steal his cattle, his wife, and children. Now we're going over into Asia, and this is a Chinese folk religion god, and he also shows up in Taoism, and I think in the Chinese folk religion he is called Lei Shen, and in Taoism he is called Leigong, but I could be wrong. I'm not 100%. In Taoism, when so ordered by heaven, Leigong punishes both earthly mortals guilty of secret crimes and evil spirits who use their knowledge of Taoism to harm people. He carries a drum and a mallet to produce thunder and a chisel to punish evildoers. Leigong rides a chariot driven by a young boy. His name translates to Lord of Thunder. He began life as a normal mortal. While on Earth, he encountered a peach tree that originated from heaven during the struggle between the fox demon and the celestial warriors. When Leigong took a bite out of one of the fruit, he was transformed into his godly form. He soon received the mace and a hammer so that he could create thunder. Also, look to see if there was any kind of serpent mythology in the Chinese religion associated with him. There isn't, but I did find this interesting connection, and that is the number 9 is strongly associated with the Chinese dragon, a symbol of magic and power. There are 9 forms of the dragon. It is described in terms of 9 attributes, and it also has 9 children. I don't know. All right, now we're going back over to Europe because I forgot to mention Jupiter. Jupiter is the king of the gods in the Roman mythology, in the Roman pantheon. Everything I said for Zeus, you can just transfer over to Jupiter, and I'm just going to move on from there because they are one and the same. So now we're going to head on over to Mesoamerica, and I'm a little bit excited for this one because, well, it gets interesting, people. Ka'awil. He used to be known as God K. He's a Mayan deity. He's identified with lightning, serpents, fertility, and, of course, maize. He is characterized by a zoomorphic head with large eyes, a long upturned snout, and a serpent tooth. Many times coming out of his forehead, he has a cigar or a torch that is emitting smoke, and that smoke carries his thoughts and what he witnesses up to heaven. He's usually represented with serpent legs, and those serpent legs also are represented at times like lightning bolts. It is believed that Ka'awil personifies the lightning axe. He is also tied to rain and also the deity of royals. I searched a lot, and I'll tell you, American lore is very, very hard to find. The stuff that wasn't completely erased a lot of times is protected by the locals because, some shit went down in the past and they don't want to lose everything. And the stuff in South America was almost 100% completely lost. The only things that were really not lost were the huge stone temples that they couldn't easily destroy, and that's really where we get the most of our evidence. There is some other interesting stuff here. From correspondences between Diego de Landa's description of the New Year's ritual and the description of these rituals in the Dresden Codex, it can be inferred that Ka'awil was called Bolan Deskab, and that translates as 9 innumerable. 9, again, lightning, and 9, I don't know, it's just crazy. But many people that study this think that the 9 innumerable is somehow connected to maternal generations. I don't know. And because they think it's connected to maternal generations, they also think it might be a metaphor for fertility. Also, remember when I was saying that he was also called God K? God K because, there isn't a lot to attest to his real name, but what they can say is that in his logogram, the numeral 9 is repeated often in it. Okay. Lightning also plays a crucial role in tales dealing with the creation of the world and its preparation for the advent of mankind. In the cosmogony of the Popol Vuh. Now, in the Popol Vuh, there are 3 lightning deities, and they're kind of like the heart of the sky. And if you're like me, and I think that you guys are like me, otherwise you wouldn't be here watching me ramble on about this stuff, you're thinking, that's not much information. And you're right, it's not much information, and we had someone to thank for that. Diego de Landa, the guy that I just brought up. This dude was a Franciscan monk, and his first order upon landing on the shores of this new land was to convert the heathen Maya masses to the true Catholic faith. To do so, he relied on tried and true methods preferred by the Catholic Church, and let's be real, most other religious organizations out there as well. At least back in the old days. He started an Inquisition, and in his own words, he found a large number of books, and in these books there were characters, and they contained nothing in which were not to be seen as superstitious and lies from the devil. And so he burned them all, which they, the Maya, regretted to an amazing degree, and which caused them much affliction. And that wasn't the only affliction that was gifted to the Maya by Landa. Also, Landa used a level of physical abuse that many people perceived as excessive. Let it sink in. Scores of Mayan nobles were jailed pending interrogation. Large numbers of Mayan nobles and commoners were subjected to examination under hoisting. They would jack you up backwards by your arms, weigh you down with rocks, and then you were beaten. I mean, sounds like a real good time, right? And those books that he said that he burned, well over 5,000 of them. In fact, he burned everything he could find. 3 pre-Columbian books of Maya hieroglyphs and perhaps fragments of a fourth are known to have survived. Well over 5,000 books were burned, completely burned, erasing a culture. The 3 books that survive are known as the Maya codices, and when people describe Landa, they say he was maniacal in his fervor. He believed fully that human sacrifice was occurring all around him, and he was willing to sacrifice a handful of sinners to save the overall community. The irony, am I right? It's only okay if I sacrifice for my God, but you can't do it for yours. He also believed that eliminating evil and pagan practices would usher in the second coming of Christ much sooner. What a freaking crazy train this guy was, right? He came as close to completely erasing a culture and all the written records as he could. He was torturing, killing, sacrificing the local population, all while trying to force the hand of God. What idiot really believes that you can force God to come back early? Like, the fucking ego on this guy. And where did this all occur? This happened in a place called Mani, the very place where Uxmal happens to stand. And I just had to add that in because we talked about Uxmal in a recent video. Ka'awil is associated with royal power, which originates with the gods. He often appears on scepters clasped by the rulers during ritual ceremonies. And very interesting here, it also talks about Jupiter or Saturn in retrograde. Now, retrograde is the part of the object's orbit which looks like it's moving west to east in comparison to the stars. And think about this also. Across the ocean at a time where we're said to absolutely not have any contact with one another, lightning gods have the same attributes and are connected to the same planets as they are in Europe. I mean, it's crazy, right? Jupiter, lightning, the number 9, war. What? All right, you guys, I'm going to cut this one off here because the next video is going to be about a god also in the Americas, also connected with lightning. But for me, this one is the one where I'm just like, oh my God, this is so freaking crazy. Anyway, I hope you guys check that one out. Thank you for checking out the video and have yourselves a very great day.